All right. We have a quorum with the chairperson, Mr. Valleja, representing Ken Adams, and Ms. Light present. Is there a motion to call to order the meeting of the members of the Housing Trust Fund Corporation? And a second?
Second.
We'll also be meeting today the Audit and Governance meeting will also be convened today, and the members will be serving in their capacities as members of that committee. May I please have a motion and a second to call to order the meeting of the Audit and Governance committees?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Those first and seconds we use throughout today unless a board member wishes to record his or her vote differently. First issue is an approval of the minutes of the meeting held on May 9th, 2019. If there are no questions or comments, the minutes will be deemed approved. All right, we will deem the minutes approved. We've been asked to take an item out of order, so the first order of business will be item number 26, a resolution authorizing an award of home funds for Brittany Terrace Manufactured Home Park. Jason?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. BT Inc. has requested $5,171,540 in New York State Home Program funds to assist in mobile home park acquisition expenses. Brittany Terrace for the BT Inc. is a manufactured home park in Rock Tavern, Orange County, and serves as a 55-plus retirement community. The homeowner residents of the park are working to acquire the park to operate as a resident-owned cooperative. As part of our process in working with them, we did a cost allocation, and it was determined that 50% of the units met the income qualifications for home, under 80% of the area median. Therefore, the $5 million is half of the total expenses, as 50% were under the median. We're requesting a recommendation resolution to provide New York State Home Program funds to BT Inc. for the purchase and cooperative conversion of Brittany Terrace Mobile Home Park in Orange County. Be happy to answer any questions.
Dina gave me the full scoop before the meeting, and I appreciate you guys deferring to the meeting so that I can learn more about it. So I think I am good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Yay! Is that allowed at a board meeting? Thank you, Jason. Tell Madeline to go. Start driving.
Next issue before the board is a resolution approving the annual independent audit. Are we joined by Anne?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Anne DeLuco. I am from BST, your auditing firm. So I'm going to take a few minutes to walk through our audit and some of the items that you have in front of you. There should be a presentation that kind of will walk through all the deliverables that you have. You also have the financial statements, the Yellow Book report, which is for government auditing standards, internal control report. There's also our internal control report, a required communications letter, and then our investment compliance report. The investment compliance report is a document attestation required by the authority's budget office. We didn't have any issues with that. You have it in front of you. If you have any questions on that, you can follow up with us, but I'm not going to walk through that document. We did identify one internal control deficiency this year, and it has to do with the disaster recovery program, and I'll walk through that a little bit later. There was no non-compliance that we found as a part of the audit, but we do know that there are the ongoing issues with HUD and the disaster recovery question costs. There were 2 audit adjustments that we'll walk through later on, and then a couple of uncorrected misstatements that were not material to the financial statements that we found as well. We are issuing a unmodified opinion this year, which is the highest level of assurance that BST can provide as an audit firm. And, we also used Watson & Rice as a part of our audit this year, which satisfies the minority and women-owned business requirement. And they did the majority of the disaster recovery testing for the year during the audit. Going into the financial statements, on the third page of that document, you'll see the opinion. It's towards the bottom of that page. And all of that wording essentially says there's an unmodified opinion, which means that it's materially correct from an audit perspective. Also want to point out on the next page in the financial statements, there's a paragraph that's called emphasis of matter. And we put this in here just as an emphasis of matter of the disaster recovery program to note that there are those certain audit reports that the HUD OIG has issued and has mentioned that there are potentially unsupported expenses and that could be subject to follow-up. Just want to point out that that's an emphasis of matter and could be potential liability down the road. So we highlighted in the opinion paragraph. Pages 3 to 6 are the management discussion analysis, MD&A, which gives highlights for the year. Feel free to read this, tonight when you're trying to fall asleep. Could help. So pages 8 through 10 are the actual financial statements. Just going to walk through a couple of highlights here. So page 8 is the statement of net position, and this has all the assets and liabilities of the entity. So a few significant changes here. You'll notice that the cash balance is down about $50 million, largely due to the fact that some of that was invested, and then also there was more spent in the New York State programs and less received on New York State programs than the prior year. I also want to point out a line here called properties for sale, kind of halfway down the page. Those are the properties that the corporation has acquired in the disaster recovery program and kind of keeping as inventory. Those have significantly decreased as those are being sold and auctioned off, and there's a lot less purchases of that. So we expect that to continually decrease as the years go on. And then lastly on this page, you'll see on the accounts payable and accrued liabilities line, another significant decrease of about $25 million. And that really has to do with the Gosier disaster recovery program as that continues to kind of go down from its peak, so significantly less expenses for the year. Moving on to the next page, page 9. These are all the revenues and expenses for the year, ending down to an ultimate change in net position or net income loss of $16 million. That loss really is a function of the New York State activity. So it's just kind of fluctuates from year to year, and it's a matter of when the appropriations come in and when it's spent. So you'll see in the New York State programs line in the revenue, last year there was over $3 million appropriations received, and then this year only about $132 million. So that's really where the big swing in net income comes from year to year. Also, I just want to point out, too, you'll see in the disaster recovery lines, which is the second line from the top, a decrease of about $125 million in revenue. So, again, supporting that program is winding down a little bit from its peak a few years ago. Any other questions on these financial statements, on these numbers?
Let me just ask a question on the
Sure.
On the first page. What's wrong? Just as a matter of form, in the second paragraph, you say that the report is solely for the information and use of the board, and not intended to be used by anybody else. I just wanted to point out that, we file, this is a public report, and we file it with a public authorities reporting system, and it gets included in all kinds of other documents that we file. Is that consistent?
The documents you're looking at are more of our communication letters, so that's why those are restricted. The actual document that gets filed with the ABO is the financial statements. That's like the thicker document that you have that says financial report on the first page. And there's no restriction on that.
Yeah, we're looking at a PDF, so it's...
Which page is,
okay.
which is the first page of the document then?
The first page of the financial report says financial report, March 31st, 2019 and 2018.
The third item,
right.
or the fifth in your PDF.
This, I guess, is what's public. But then this AU-260, that's what's not public?
I think it's the draft financial report that gets
It's what's public. So the thing above it, which is the AU 260, that's which is the Word, the document that's got all the Word.
Right.
That you're saying is not.
That's more our auditor communication for the board.
Okay.
And that's consistent with wording that we've had forever.
Okay.
Right, and
Does
that
that answer?
in
Yep.
the draft financial report is the unmodified opinion
Right.
that Ann was
Okay.
referring to.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back into the financial statements.
I'm sorry, we have a question.
Just 1 second.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't
Yes.
know if this is a question for you as much as maybe for Ruth Ann and the HR folks, but did you guys, what's the sort of summary of the cuts, if any, you guys got at the federal level between last year and this year
On the PBCA?
On
on
which
whatever, on any
federal we are
got more.
up on
didn't-
CDBG. We're up on home.
Not
actually.
Yeah, on home and CDBG we got
Right.
And Housing Trust Fund keeps growing until they kill it. And
And on
Weatherization.
PBCA, we've had
weatherization.
reductions in our administrative fees
No.
going into effect in December, I think.
Yeah.
But that
No,
wouldn't
I'm
show.
sorry,
That would show here.
Not
Right.
this year.
Not-
So
yeah.
we didn't have any major cuts to any of the federal programs, and I think Ann was just saying the actual revenue, which, as you know, doesn't necessarily line out with either the appropriation given to us by the feds or the state, but is actually the money we draw down and spend actually went up this past year on the federal side.
But you were also saying that the reduction had to do with the state programs, and you can see in here there's that difference from 310 to 132 on the state
That's
line.
timing, right?
Right.
Is it
Right.
Is that, did we pull down a whole bunch of money for one particular thing in 18, or that's
No,
just
this is related to DOB's desire to more effectively manage the cash at the state level. So they're limiting our ability to draw in the same manner we have done in the past. So that's really where the reduction came from.
It's just a slow draw. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Pages 11 through 26 are the notes to the financial statements. They describe our accounting policies, more specifically some of the numbers in the financial statements. These are largely consistent with the prior year notes. There's a couple that I want to point out on page 25 and 26. Page 25, footnote 10D. Again, we have a footnote in here about potential contingent liabilities related to the disaster recovery program and the findings that have come from the HUD OIG office. While we actually haven't recorded any liability related to this, because while we know there's likely going to be amounts that will have to be paid in the future, the amount is not estimatable, so we can't record anything as a liability there. In addition, the corporation did begin the recapture program. So there's amounts that have been sent out to be repaid from beneficiaries. Again, on a similar token, a receivable has not been recorded for those amounts, just with the expectation that collection would not happen. So we have not recorded a receivable there either. But that is a highlight of these financial statements that could come down the road as a potential liability. Also, footnote 10 talks about the PBCA program. And the fact that currently it's been extended through December 2020, but after that point, the corporation's not really sure what's going to happen with that program, and that really is the main source of revenue for the corporation. So if that ends or changes in some way in terms of the amount of the administration fee, there could be potential of going concern issues that we'll have to think about when that happens. We've got about 18 months until that ends currently. So we'll have to keep tuned to that. So that's all for the actual financial statements. I'm going to move on to some of the other documents that you have. There is a document that is in the middle. It says bolded, disaster recovery accounts payable and expenses. And this is an internal control deficiency that we found during our audit. It was found that certain invoices that related to fiscal year 18 were recorded in fiscal year 19. So expenses were overstated in 19. And this really was a function of, within the Gosier program, expenses being recorded when they were approved rather than when they were received. And on the accrual basis of accounting, expenses need to be recorded when the services are provided or when the expense was actually incurred. So the actual understatement, was $400,000. And while we do samples in our audit, so we projected this over the total population, we projected to be about a $2.8 million overstatement of expenses for fiscal year 19. So essentially, there's a lack of control for ensuring that invoices are recorded in the proper year for what they really relate to. And it's really only in the disaster recovery program that we found these issues. So really going forward, invoices should be recorded into the accounting software as soon as they are received, rather than waiting until they're approved to be recorded in the system. And that really should alleviate any of these problems going forward. Any questions related to that? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the required communications letter. It's a document that is addressed dear members of the board, and kind of starts like halfway down the page. These are communications.
We're looking at a PDF.
There we have where the
So
you want it?
I wish they were better labeled. The second page of it says communications with those charged with governance.
Got it.
Present this better.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So on. Yep. Was there a question?
Yep. Okay. Nothing.
So these are required communications that we are required to give to the board. We talk about, accounting policies, transaction disagreements. Essentially, there were no new accounting pronouncements, nor was there anything that was required to be adopted. There was no unusual transactions, no disagreements with management, no difficulties encountered during the audit. We did note again, a significant item that was discussed was the disaster recovery program and the administration of that program. Page 5 of that document is all the recorded audit adjustments that we actually did find during the audit, and there's only two, one of which relates to a liability that needs to be recorded for shared employees on the PBCA program, and that's a liability that's paid to the DHCR. That's what the one that says due to other governments. And then the second one relates to assumptions that are actuarially determined for the OPEB liability. And those amounts are pulled right from the actuarial statement. It can get a little confusing with the deferred outflows and inflows. So those are just a true up from that actuary report. And then
Which is the, in the significant items discussed with management, is the CDBG, is that related to the disaster recovery?
Yeah, so the Community Development Disaster Recovery Program.
That's it? Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right, and then page 6. These are uncorrected misstatements, so ultimately items that either for quantitative or qualitative reasons did not get adjusted in the financial statements. The vacation liability is never recorded and ultimately has a very minimal effect on the financial statements. The entry here to record the property value, we've always kind of estimated those because they're usually sold at a loss. So we've always recorded a decrease to that value as an estimate of that loss that's going to happen when those are eventually sold. It was only about a $1.3 million change this year, so we elected not to record that change. Just, ultimately it's very immaterial, and these are going to ultimately be sold off in the future, so we elected not to make that adjustment. And then the last one there, that's that projected error of disaster recovery expenses for that internal control deficiency. So you'll see that $2.8 million there that we projected over the population of disaster recovery expenses for that error that we found. So once these reports are approved, and I actually got the signed representation letter today from Stacy, we can issue these final tomorrow and submit them to the ABO tomorrow to meet the June 30th deadline.
Great, thank you very much.
Any more questions? So now before the board is resolution approving the annual independent audit, assuming the first and second previously entered for both the board, for the board, for the audit committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item is a resolution approving the annual procurement report and procurement and contract guidelines.
Good afternoon. The annual procurement report was compiled as a joint effort between HTFC and GOZER. The MWBE numbers in the annual report HTFC exceeded our 30%. We did 60.73% for HTFC. The GOZER is excluded. It's not. I think you count it, but it's not counted towards. We don't get credit because it's all federal money. But I don't know what those numbers are. I don't know if you have those.
Sure.
Okay. The MBE is 23.47, WBE 12.87, and the MWBE percentage total is 31.78.
Good.
What was that number again, Lisa? 60?
73.
73. Right.
Nice.
All above 30.
Yeah, that's great.
It's amazing the improvement in NWB numbers at these agencies over the last 10 years. It's like, for those of us who were here when you used to get 5%, it's outrageous. Amazing.
Set an aggressive goal, you can meet it.
You can exceed it, triple it. It's incredible. Why are you giving me a funny look?
I'm not giving you any looks. I think it's in the report.
No, Lisa.
Is any
Linda.
question? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I got like a
sorry.
red flag email. I apologize. If there are no questions, assuming now before the board, now before the Audit and Governance Committees is a resolution approving the annual procurement report and the procurement and contract guidelines. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the Audit Committee, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now before both the Audit and Governance Committees as well as the Board is a resolution approving the annual disposition report and property disposal guidelines. Stacy?
Good afternoon. Before the members today is a report on the property disposal guidelines, to which we are not recommending any changes, as well as a report that outlines the real property purchased, sold, and then held in ownership as of 3/31. So it's the properties purchased and sold between 4/1 and 3/31, as well as the listing of properties still held as of 3/31/19. As you are aware, the Governor's Office for Storm Recovery's buyout and acquisition programs brought HTFC into the property ownership world. Prior to now, we did not own any real property. Over the course of the last several years, we've been actively involved in the buyout and acquisition programs, and as was mentioned by our auditor, we are slowing down on the number of properties we've purchased. The number of properties we've sold or dispositioned has been pretty steady over the last few years. The list of properties held as of 3/31 is still fairly significant, but the vast majority of those are properties that were purchased under one of the buyout programs, and my understanding through conversations with GOZER staff is that we are trying to plan out the best way to disposition those properties. Most of them are in, obviously, neighborhoods, so it's trying to get the entire population of those properties to the same entity so that they can remain vacant in perpetuity. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Nope.
All right. If there are no questions, then now before the Audit and Governance Committees is a resolution approving the annual report on prompt payments and amended prompt payment policy, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. The resolution is approved and the motion is adopted. And now before the board is a resolution approving the annual audit report on prompt payments and amended prompt payment policy, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the board is resolution approving the annual annual report on investments and investment policies.
The annual report on investments provides a copy of the current investment policy, to which we are not recommending any changes. It also provides a summary of the investments held by the corporation as of 3/31/2019. It provides copies and information on investment interest and bank interest earned, as well as any accrued interest that had not been collected as of 3/31. And the final information held within this report is information on the checking, the funds held in the checking account as of 3/31 and any fees paid for banking services over the course of the year. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to our investments.
Any question? All right, then assuming the first and second previously entered for the audit committee, all in favor of the resolution approving the annual report on investments and investment policy, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the HTFC board is a resolution approving the annual report on investments and investment policy. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. Next before the board is a resolution approving the mission statement and the annual performance report. I will just apologize to everybody. We're going to need to send, before we post, we're going to do an updated version of the mission statement and the report. I think the copy you had inadvertently attached a PDF, a markup of the document to the PDF, so we're just going to make sure that's clean and just clean up a few things. But the substance of the report, I think, accurately outlines the work that HTFC has performed over the last year, both in our Office of Community Renewal, within our multifamily projects, and within the Office of Storm Recovery. Are there questions about?
Yeah, I just had a question. It seems like a large redo of the mission statement. What led to this? I see the redlining. I'm sorry. No, this is the report on performance-based. This is not the mission statement. This is the report.
That's what I'm saying.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, Lynn. That's what you were saying, right?
Right, that this is...
And so the mission statement is not here.
The mission statement is not changed. The mission statement is...
Okay, I got it. Sorry, I saw that and I wasn't listening to you.
The black lines, I apologize, are folding in more of an explanation on storm recovery.
Yeah.
And so it's just...
Meaning you're adding more about storm recovery because...
It just gave additional detail.
Right.
Do you have the just basic mission statement?
I think it is. It's in the doc.
I think I attached a clean and a black line of the mission statement. So the black line showed the changes that were made relative to last year's mission statement.
Is the mission statement just the one sentence that says HTFC's mission is to ensure housing affordability for low, grade, low, and extremely low income households?
I think this is it, right? Well,
Yeah, it's the top. It's the opening paragraph.
It's the opening paragraph, right?
Right.
So our mission statement is HTFC achieves this mission through the whatever that's included in our mission statement, the how.
I thought this was the mission, but it's a report,
It's
right?
a report of accomplishments as well. So I believe it's the entirety of the document that we're documenting.
Well, no, but the mission statement is itself.
Yeah.
Right, the mission statement is the opening,
I thought I played golf.
the paragraph that starts HTFC's mission. That is the mission statement.
The entire paragraph or just that first sentence?
I believe it's the entire paragraph because it folds in the Office of Storm Recovery is the addition. We can tighten that up. And I think when we get to the board self-evaluations, one of the questions that was raised by the board were issues around clarity of mission statement and how we tie our goals to the mission statements. I think it's probably an appropriate topic for a board meeting, either annually or in July around those questions. And I think one of the questions was what recommendations would be appropriate for the board to make. And I think given both the expansion that we've seen in HTFC's work in recent years, and I think some of the work we've done on the HFA Sunny May side around tightening of mission statement and tying goals, it would be appropriate to carry that through here, and that's something we could do in our next meeting and mark it for an annual,
So the prior version then of the mission statement just said that the mission was to further community development through the construction, development, revitalization of low-income housing, right? And now we're putting in ensure affordability for low, very low, and extremely low households, right? And then we're adding the administration of Section 8. And I guess that was my question was what led us to include low, very low, and extremely low?
I think part of it is because are some of the housing trust fund dollars flowing through HTFC? That's what I thought when I read this. So with the Federal Housing Trust Fund, which is targeting 30 AMI households, I thought maybe some of that was flowing through here, and that's why we changed it. But I might have just inferred that in my brain.
Let me double check that. Jason.
I believe the Federal Housing Trust Fund is going through HFA.
Oh, okay. So it's not hitting this.
Yeah.
So
I will double check it right
who
now.
proposed this language, though? So who's suggesting that the mission? I'm fine with it, but I just want to get a sense of how this came about. Yeah.
Dan, or was it Jason? I want to say. Perhaps it was Dan.
Well, Dan Byer probably added the administration of. Oh, maybe he did the very low too. The administration of federal Section 8. So maybe both of those things are actually about Section 8.
And I think
low, very low.
I think that's right. It was from
the storm. I think some of the storm language also acknowledges that, in addition to GOSER, we're doing additional flood-related work.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Okay.
What was the rationale just to add that? Like, you're not doing new stuff with Section 8, right? Is it just to be more explicit?
Right.
Got it.
But I think this would be an appropriate topic for a longer discussion.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
So we will update. So we will update the document and just make sure it is.
I think there's some Section 3 wording that applies to some of the Section 8 work that has that wording of low, very low. I've seen it in some of my procurements.
Right. That wouldn't be
That which goes
HTFC.
under Brooke Davis.
Right, but I don't. Well, so our FIHO unit does our Section 3 reporting as well as our Section 3 outreach, but I don't think that's what triggered a change in the mission statement.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we will put that on the agenda for a July board meeting. And if there are no other questions, then now before sorry, was there a question?
Linda, we have to have an approved mission statement to upload to the ABO with the audit. So if we could have something that would allow us to use last year's until such time as you amend it for this year.
I think everybody's fine with the language. It's more the document just needs to be approved. So I was just the substance won't change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So then now before the audit, shouldn't it be the governance committee, Dwight, for the mission statement?
Yes.
Okay. Then now before the governance committee is a resolution approving the mission statement and the performance report, assuming the first and second previously entered for the governance committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the board is a resolution approving the mission statement and the performance report, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
So, Linda, to your point about sort of annually just going over the mission statement and how it relates, maybe we can do that next time the month before, so we've done that before
Right.
you have to.
Right.
attach it
I
to
think
the
we'll put it in for July this year, so we have the conversation, and then it would make sense. Right. We'll probably in May.
May, even better.
Right. We do it in May next year, and that way, when the mission statement comes before the board, and similarly, I think the same conversation needs to be had around the report on operations and accomplishments, and I think the report itself is fairly self-explanatory, but it would make sense for the board to formally hear from each of the program areas as to the accomplishments. And most of which are represented here today. So if there are questions or concerns, people can certainly speak to them. But I don't know if people have questions about the report on operations and
I
accomplishments.
think Dwight circulated that.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it's both comprehensive and self-explanatory. But I think as we talk about goal setting, hearing about the accomplishments at that time and looking forward would similarly make sense. And we could do that in a May board meeting for it to come to the board in June. All right, then if there are no questions, now before the governance committee is a report approving the annual report on operations and accomplishments, assuming the first and second previously entered for the committee. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Certainly the report, just for the record, shows a great deal of activity and a great deal of success.
Exactly.
In the program.
Exactly. I mean,
Very good.
I don't think there's a issue as to the success. It's more making sure that we are transparent in reporting to the board, highlighting it. And then now before the board is resolution approving the annual report on operations and accomplishments, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the board and the governance committee is a resolution approving the board self-evaluation, the governance committee self-evaluation, and the audit committee self-evaluation. Actually, we'll put it before the audit committee as well as the governance committee. I think here, and we've kind of folded this discussion in, the questions that were raised by the board self-evaluations really related to issues of mission and goal setting. So I think we've discussed how we can address that more successfully going forward. So are there questions?
There was just one other that has come up in the past, and it's really as a result of the form, because, we're supposed to use this form that comes from the, yes. Yeah, I'll take one, Dwight, too.
Thank you.
So as a result of the fact that the form is the authority's budget office, there's one question that has always, and I asked Dwight to put in not applicable here, and it's the one where the board exercises appropriate oversight of the CEO and other executive, including setting performance expectations, reviewing performance annually. In the world of perfect public authorities, that's how boards would work, but we don't do that at any of the HCR. We don't set standards. The CEO has to do X or Y. It's a programmatic wide goals that we have, like in the operation. So I asked Dwight to just put in not applicable because, right?
I was wondering about that because obviously we don't have that, but I'm not sure it's a problem. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful to understand that.
So that's one that we discussed, and I think all of the others. This is similar again. I've seen this many times with our authorities. I didn't have any. Again, measurable goals. I answered somewhat agree on a couple of them because the board really is reactive on a lot of things, right? So that doesn't mean I disagree. It's just that That's
I think we could maybe also incorporate some of that into what we were just saying, but if we go into a May meeting looking at the goals plan, if the goal plan becomes more tied, then it becomes in some ways like a preview, or it could be incorporate into it goal setting for the next year that would be like consistent or greater than where we were the year before or something.
Right, and I was trying to remember why. That's the one. It says that the board set clear and measurable performance goals. And we really don't do that. We have a general housing plan, but it's not driven by
performance goals.
Right. That was it.
But maybe if we take that plan, we could hit a couple birds.
That's what I'm thinking.
With one stone and like
Right.
have it be the roadmap for that.
Yep.
I mean, it's a little hard with those because they don't actually have like year by year. Their goals are more in the decline than the improve year over year, I guess. They're sort of things for the rest. It's like we want to be able to. Well, I was thinking for the other program areas, it's like we have a certain amount of money we get every year, and we're trying to deliver that. GOSTER is like that, but it's sort of morphing, right?
But they set operational goals. I mean, they set programmatic goals.
So we can incorporate those too.
Yep.
Okay. And the only other one I would comment on is the one about having sufficient opportunity to research and discuss, which I mentioned to Dwight and Ruth Ann that I think, particularly since I'm not here every day to know all of your projects inside and out, it really helps to have the presentations that the staff gives. So to the degree we can minimize doing votes by email, that's very helpful for me to feel like I hear more and ask questions.
Sure. All right. If there are no further questions, then now before the Governance and Audit Committees is a resolution approving the Board self-evaluation, Governance Committee self-evaluation, Audit Committee self-evaluation, assuming the first and second previously entered for each of the committees. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the Board is a resolution approving the Board self-evaluation, Governance Committee self-evaluation, and the Audit Committee self-evaluation, assuming the first and second previously entered for the Board. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the Board and the Governance Committee is a resolution ratifying authorization to enter into contracts with local program administrators to administer the Southern Tier Finger Lakes Recovery Program. Apropos of our discussion of storm recovery.
Right.
Or
Good afternoon. As Linda said before the members, is a resolution ratifying authorization to enter into contracts with local program administrators under the Southern Tier Finger Lakes Recovery Program. $13 million was appropriated as part of the fiscal year 2020 budget. It was a SAM appropriation, so it required a 15-day waiting period that we had to notice the legislature in order to draw the funds. We would like to contract with 3 not-for-profits, being Bishop Sheen Housing, Arbor Housing and Development, and Opportunities for Shenango. They will serve a 7-county area, Broome, Chemung, Shenango, Delaware, Schuyler, Seneca, and Tioga counties. And this will be to provide relief and recovery for primary homeowners living in those regions that were impacted during the coverage period, which was August 13th to August 15th of 2018. The maximum grant per homeowner will be up to $50,000. And there's a variety of eligible activities that we have released as part of our program guidelines. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any income restrictions on the funds?
The statute did not set income restrictions. It's very vague. It's just a few lines. However, the governor, when he rolled out the program in, I think it was November of 2018, he did specify that this round of funding would be for primary homeowners only. You may recall under what was actually an AHC program for Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence Seaway Recovery Program, that was for first and second homeowners, and there were income restrictions on the second homeowner portion of that program. We will not serve second homeowners under this program.
Is this additive to the AHC and the other dollars?
No, this was a separate appropriation of SAM funds that came after Ontario and before New Ontario, in between the Ontarios, and
so it's not gapping where we're trying to get
And we didn't put any of our own dollars in, so this is all brand new content.
This is a different
area.
Different.
It is, and I will say to Holly's earlier question, it is true that it did not put limitations on incomes, but we do know, having looked into the area, it's much lower income generally as a population than Ontario. These aren't lakefront homes, really, by and large.
Okay. I'm all right with this.
And now before the Governance Committee is a resolution authorizing the HTFC to enter into contracts with local program administrators to administer the Southern Tier Finger Lakes Recovery Program, assuming the first and second lien previously entered for the Governance Committee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Similarly, before the board is a resolution authorizing entry into contracts with local program administrators to administer Southern Tier Finger Lakes Recovery Program, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And can I ask you a question, Lori? Not to put you on the spot, but for Lake Ontario Round 1, are we out of? Are we still spending money? Are we close to out of money?
Well, those funds were directed to AHC as opposed to the Southern Tier funds, which were directed to the Housing Trust Fund Corporation. So we just under AHC or through AHC for the Lake Ontario Round 1, we just requested another $17.4 million from budget through a SAM appropriation, which I believe we have received.
Oh, okay.
But again, that's AHC, not the trust fund.
What was the rationale for the different places that you put the money through?
You mean the nonprofits that got selected?
AHC versus.
It wasn't us. It was the appropriation language that came through the state legislature. So I don't think.
I actually think, I think the other reason was that we committed actual AHC dollars from our normal AHC appropriation for a tiny bit to sort of bridge the gap in Lake Ontario 1. Remember this?
Yes.
Probably shouldn't have done that, but we did, and so we put in $8 million of AHC, and so when they sent the new money, they were like, just keep running it through.
And we needed specific authorization for
That's right.
AHC to expend the funds in the way they did, and we had more of an infrastructure internally to expend those dollars through AHC at the time than we did at HTFC.
But just programmatically, it makes more sense here, ultimately?
Well, AHC has nothing to do with this. It's all being run out of
Right.
HTFC. Right?
Yeah, and we brought Lori on board, and now she's in charge of all floods everywhere. I'm just kidding. But she's in charge of she is our one on the ground, sort of handling all
Watching
of
the
these.
weather in a whole new way.
All right. Now before the board is a resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Rural and Urban Community Investment Program. Sean was in camera a minute ago and is now.
He's still here.
Hello. These awards were made pursuant to an RFP and NOFA that were issued last summer. They were initially approved by the board in May here. The rural and urban CIF programs have been operational now for about 5 years, increasing demand each year. And if you look at the awards made under this resolution, it's a demonstration of that. If there are any questions about any of the particular projects, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
If there are no questions, now before the board is a resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Rural and Urban Community Investment Fund Program, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Which item is this?
SIF number 11.
SIF 11. Okay, got it. Right.
The resolution is carried and the motion is adopted. Now before the board is a resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Low Income Housing Trust Fund Program. Sean?
Yeah, same situation. These were awards made pursuant to an RFP and NOFA issued last summer through our unified funding process. The Housing Trust Fund Program is a program that's been authorized statutorily since the 80s. We've had great success with it. The projects that were awarded were all subject to a review and a process, and all had satisfactory results. Again, if there are any questions about a specific project or the process, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
Sean, the last one on this one said that you got 93 applications, and then this one's awarding 20, and the other one was awarding 11. Did 93 people, like in this case, ask? I assume the answer is no, but 93 people asked for HTF, and we only awarded 20, or a subset of the 93 asked for HTF?
A subset of the 93 requested HTF, and the awards are a subset of that amount, that number.
Okay.
All right.
Are you generally oversubscribed, I guess, on this one and the last one, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, across, when we look at oversubscription, we look at the amount of 9% credit that was asked for, SLIC, and all the subsidy programs. And we were oversubscribed about more than 2 to 1 across the board.
Great, thanks.
Any questions? Okay. Now before the board's resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Low-Income Housing Tax Trust Fund Program. Assuming the first and second previously entered to the board, all in favor, please say aye.
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 My computer died.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Here you go, Ruth Ann. Here,
No, here. I'll pass. We can share it.
here, you guys
I can
take
share
it.
with Alex.
I've got my script, so you guys can follow along. Next before the board is resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Supportive Housing Opportunity Program. Sean?
Again, these awards are made pursuant to an RFP and NOFA issued last summer, putting our unified funding round in place. The SHOP program has been a huge new addition to the resources that we deploy, heavily requested in this funding round. We were pleased to be able to make the number of awards that we were able to make. Again, this is a program that's critical to implementing Governor's supportive housing initiative, and in the housing plan, we're very happy with the results. If there are any questions about specific projects, I'd be happy to take them.
All right. Then now before the board is a resolution ratifying authorizations under the Supportive Housing Opportunity Program. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. Next before the board is resolution ratifying authorization of awards under the Middle Income Housing Program.
Again,
You're on a roll.
Yeah, you know the story. Unified funding, NOFA, and RFP that went out last summer also made the Middle Income Housing Program available. This is a great program that we've only had for several years, allowing us to do a mixed income project more easily. It's used in combination sometimes with SLIC. In this case, we were able to do projects that really were helping in terms of revitalizing the communities in which they're located. And getting a mixture of incomes into those projects. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
No, I was just thinking maybe it's because we do these source by source, but there's like a lot of overlap. We should figure out for next time we do them how to maybe do like it can be quick, but sort of like a project level go through, which is sort of Holly's earlier point about just sort of it being a little bit disconnected when it's kind of en masse. It doesn't have to be like a long presentation, but we could maybe go through them and talk about it or something like that.
Absolutely.
Pictures, Sean.
Yeah.
Will do.
And I don't want to make more work, but you have all this anyway, sort of in a different format, right? That we could just sort of, for this, not for the approvals, but just sort of to do like maybe a quick overview and then say.
I think doing it by source is not the most effective way to do it, but just present the projects overall, do some summaries of business as well.
Yeah, and then we could do the resolutions kind of en masse if we do them by source, but we could do the presentation. Yeah, okay, that'd be cool.
You could do resolution en masse following and overarching.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linda, just to note that I recuse on Brook 156.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I feel like I should recuse on that too, that I've worked on it for a long time. Just kidding.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you. Next item before the board is resolution ratifying authorization of an increase in award under the home program and a decrease in award under the low-income housing trust fund program for Walnut Hill Apartments.
Thank you, Linda. This was really a movement of resources around in order to help deploy and disperse additional home funds for the agency. We were presented with an opportunity to use the additional home funds. So there's really no change in the overall amount of funding being provided to this project. It's actually just a change in the mix of resources to help us meet our agency-wide disbursement target for home.
Okay. We just love spending our home.
Right. If there are no questions, then now before the board is resolution ratifying authorization of an increase in award under the home program and a decrease in award under the low-income housing trust fund program for Walnut Hill Apartments. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The resolution is carried and the motion is adopted. Now before the board is resolution authorizing awards under the Community Development Block Grant Program for 2019. Jason?
Thank you. OCR is looking to advance just over $10 million in CDBG housing awards. A NOFA was published on March 1st of this year, and we received a total of 35 eligible applications from 16 counties and 7 regions in New York. The total request was just over $16 million. We're proposing recommending awards to 23 of these projects for a total award amount of $10,087,510, which will assist a total of 346 households projected. 346 households are projected to benefit from these investments. Requesting a recommendation resolution to approve and enter into contract to these 23 housing awards for CDBG.
Listed by municipal they're all municipalities.
Yes, CDBG is always awarded to units of local government.
Right, right. These have units next to them. Are they all doing housing, or not necessarily?
This is the housing CDBG pot.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Like we have an economic development pot, a housing pot, and an infrastructure pot. This is the housing pot.
Were these already projects that those towns had? They applied for those projects? Is that
I mean, I think it's a mix, right? Some are like prospective, they get funded, and some are in process and need to layer.
Is there a unit? They're all very different in terms of, like, in Cortland you get 55 units for $500,000, and in Westville you get 5 units for $500,000. Is there a cap?
The cap is, I think it's $750 for the counties and $500 for not.
Sorry.
But the reason,
No, but like
the
a
reason
project,
Or like
Jason,
per
like a
project?
project,
No,
like we
not
put
on a-
home.
not on a-
Oh, the way, okay.
No. So what, like City of Cortland is a wells and septic, so we're doing probably laterals there to set up the connection from the main line to the household, as opposed to doing rehab. Westville, as you mentioned, or that's for mobile home replacement. So we'll be doing 5 units of mobile home replacement there.
Okay.
There's different activities that you can get more depending on the activity type.
Gotcha. Okay. County of Essex got 2?
Yeah,
No,
one of them
zero
is for
work?
rehab, and then one is for homeowner assistance.
Gotcha, right. They apply under different.
Different activity type, right?
Okay. You're very generous, Jason.
All right.
I'm good.
Assuming there are no other questions, then now before the board is resolution authorizing awards under the Community Development Block Grant Program for 2019. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the board is resolution authorizing an award of Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Funds to the City of Canandaigua for 170 South Main Corporation.
So Thank you. The City of Canandaigua is requesting $100,000 in CDBG small business funds to assist Aquila with working capital and the purchase of furniture, fixture, and equipment needed to renovate their facility in the City of Canandaigua. Aquila is going to be a modern industrial-themed bar and restaurant combined with antique and salvage materials for their decoration. The property requires renovation and repair as it's outdated and has not been remodeled since the 1980s. And the business also plans to gut and renovate the interior of the building. The proposed total project cost of $394,000 will create 6 full-time jobs over the 2 years, with 4 or 66% benefiting low to moderate income individuals. CDBG funds will be used for furniture, fixtures, equipment again, and cost per job is $16,667, with each dollar in CDBG funds leveraging $2.94 in private investment. Requesting a recommendation resolution to provide CDBG economic development funds to the City of Canandaigua to assist Aquila.
Are there any questions?
Nope, another bar. Looking good.
The now before the board is a resolution authorizing the award of community development block grant economic development funds to the City of Canandaigua. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Next before the board for consideration is an award of community development block grant economic development funds to the Village of Canton for the Audrey Guthrie Inc. DBA Dairy Queen.
Didn't we have this last month?
I thought we did.
I remember Audrey Guthrie because I made some comment.
And I remember Dairy Queen.
Yes, at the prep meeting you mentioned that.
Oh, is that what it was? Sorry.
I feel like I would have remembered.
So the Village of Canton is requesting $195,000.
It's not his fault.
In-
It's economic development. We get what we get.
Keep going. Don't mean Dina.
Sorry.
No, the Village of Canton is requesting $195,000 in CDBG economic development funds to assist the Dairy Queen with the purchase of machinery and equipment needed to continue operations. The unit had a devastating fire in August of 2018 where it was considered 100% loss. The business's intention is to repair the site and construct an 1,886 square foot building using the same footprint that was there before. The proposed total project cost of $972,964 will create 14 full-time jobs over the 2 years, with 64% of them to benefit low to moderate income individuals. CDBG cost per job is $13,929, and each dollar in CDBG funds will leverage $428 in private investment. Requesting a recommendation resolution to provide economic development funds to the Village of Canton for the Dairy Queen.
Did they have no
Happy to answer.
insurance?
What we're funding is beyond what their insurance covered.
I will comment that as a Dairy Queen goer, I really don't like the grill and chill. I think Dairy Queen should just be ice cream. So if our money is to do the grill part, not the chill part, I might have to abstain from voting. But aside from that, I'm okay with it.
What's a Dairy Queen?
Are you serious?
Alex, stop. They have Dairy
Dairy
Queen
Queen
in
mine,
Connecticut
but-
or whatever.
I've
far
never
from
been
these-
to a Dairy Queen.
Well,
know what it is.
you need
You've
a
never had
Of
blizzard.
course I know what it is. But
Now they serve like hot
I didn't
dogs.
realize
It's very
that,
confusing.
that they
And
now
French fries.
serve like
I've
hot
always
dogs.
had a grill.
No.
Yeah,
ice
when I was a
cream.
kid, they had a grill.
Absolutely.
They were
French fries,
crazy.
as long as I've known them.
Not by me. Not in my neck of the woods.
Not Rhode Island.
When is an adult? So.
Just the blizzard.
We do a friendlies? No. Okay. Now before the board is a resolution authorizing an award of community development block grant economic development funds to the Village of Canton for Audrey Guthrie Inc., DBA Dairy Queen. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted and the motion is carried. Now before the board is a resolution authorizing an award of community development block grant economic development funds to Herkimer County for Turbo Machine products. Probably something we have less opinions about.
Herkimer County is requesting $225,000 in the CDBG economic development funds to assist Turbo Machine products with the purchase of machinery and equipment needed to expand their facility in the village of Frankfort in the county. Turbo Machine does precision parts for the aerospace, defense, municipal power, marine, military, solar, nuclear, and medical industries, and there is a growing demand for their products. they are looking to increase output of their machinery and finishing capabilities. The total project cost of just over $1.49 million will retain 10 jobs and create 5 over the 2 years, with 100% of them to benefit low and moderate income persons. Without the CDBG funds, the business will be unable to make planned equipment purchases, which they would shed jobs and they would lose, thus the retention. The cost per job is $15,000, with each dollar in CDBG funds leveraging $5.63 in private investment. Requesting a recommendation resolution to provide New York State CDBG Economic Development Funds to Herkimer County for turbo machine products.
Any questions? There are no questions, and now before the board is resolution authorizing an award for community development block grant economic development funds to Herkimer County for turbo machine products, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Next before the board is consideration of an award of community development block grant economic development funds to the village of Pan Yen, and I will not butcher the name of the hotel.
The village of Penn Yan is requesting $316,000 to assist the Cayuga Lake Hotel with architectural and engineering expenses and the purchase of machinery and equipment to build their 300-seat banquet conference center. They are ready to move forward at their location, which will include an expansion to the 72-room hotel, the banquet conference center, parking, lakefront amenities, including the patio, fire pit, docks, and the lakeside gazebo. The proposed total project cost of $4,466,000 will create 26 full-time jobs over the 2 years, with 18 or 69% to benefit low and moderate income individuals. The cost per job is $12,153, and each CDBG dollar will leverage $13.13 in private investment. We're requesting a recommendation resolution to provide CDBG economic development funds to Penn Yan for the Cayuga Lake Hotel.
Any questions?
No, they have a lot of equity in this deal.
Good.
Do they also get money from some, like, other place?
No, so they have a $600,000 bank loan, $500,000 from Market New York, R316, and then the equity of $3 million, just over $3 million.
It's a lot of equity.
Whoa.
Not a criticism, just a unusual.
All right, then now before the board is resolution authorizing an award under home funds under the Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Program to the Village of Pan Yang for Yucca Lake
Cayuga.
Hotel. Thank you. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. It's another Hampton Inn. Now before the board is an award for consideration is an award of home program funds to Belmont Housing Resources for WNY.
Thank you. Belmont Housing Resources for Western New York has requested $439,000 in home program funds to provide monthly rent subsidies for up to 30 households in Niagara County. Home tenant-based rental assistance can be used to assist families under 80% of the area median with rental subsidies similar to the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. Belmont's application demonstrated the need for the assistance and that the program is feasible. With Niagara County having a long waiting list on their Section 8 Voucher Program, we're requesting a recommendation resolution to provide home funds to Belmont Housing for up to 30 households in Niagara County for tenant-based rental assistance.
So do they run a Section 8? Sorry, I'm reading this as I'm going. They have a Section 8 program already?
Yeah, Jason, this is the one, right, to help with the Becky's relocation of the distress project,
Oh.
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so
That is correct.
they're an LP or whatever we call our Section 8 administrating agencies,
Administrators.
and we needed somebody to be in between the distribution of the home funds and managing, turning that into Section 8 subsidy
Right.
in order to relocate them.
For the one that had for what building was
This
it?
is this,
Niagara?
the name of the project in Niagara, I'm now forgetting it because they always mix it
That
up
had
with
the fire.
Red Heron or whatever. Not the fire. It's the old army barrack in
Not
Niagara.
Tonawanda?
It's
Yeah, Jason will remember. Let's let him say. What is it?
So the project is the Unicorn Apartments. However,
Unicorn.
this is eligible for anyone in Niagara County that's under the home regs. It's for anybody in Niagara County, but the Unicorn Apartments are absolutely eligible for this funding.
But Jason's done I just want to say, I think a great thing here because, right, we didn't really have a relocation plan for these residents, and we were just going to be like, okay, do you want to stay, do you want to go, and this is enabling us to help relocate them successfully.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and you just like pull it together.
So they won't come off the wait lists. We will find a way to target.
This is time limited to 6 years, Jason? 2 years, 6 years? I think 2 years, but it can extend up to 6. So that is a little bit of a, like, something has to happen between now and 6 years from now. And so generally I think Becky's plan is to try to get them on a waiting list so that you could go off this.
Or into some other housing authorities. Okay, this is great.
It is great. Thank you, Jason.
And now before the board is resolution authorizing award of home program funds to Belmont Housing Resources for WNY Inc. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. Now before the board is approval of contracts for firms with housing technical consultant services. Mike?
Good afternoon. These are contracts we have in place for 3 service areas: construction monitoring, environmental review, and engineering architectural services. Over the past few years, we've been primarily using the environmental services. We originally had a budget of $535,000 for a 5-year term. The RFP was issued in 2014. This resolution is to extend it 1 year and to increase the budget by $110,000. I do want to note that over the past fiscal year, we've been using less funds than we previously had. The environmental unit has staffed up, which resulted in less expenditures for these firms. In 2017-18, we spent about $129,000, and this last fiscal year was just under $70,000 for these services. So we expect to continue this for the foreseeable future, but this extension of the contract would allow us to continue this work.
Like, do you use these guys to extend your geographic reach, or just because there's more work than there is staff, so it's just like a supplemental?
It's primarily for LPA reviews for the Office of Community Renewal. So they're targeted reviews that we call them local program administrator reviews, and it's work that the environmental unit didn't have staffing for, and now that the environmental unit has more staff, we've been slowly being transitioning over to having staff take care of these services, but we currently don't have enough staff to commit to not utilizing these contracts, and we also sometimes get hit with special projects, and this would allow us to take care of that if there's some urgent need or whatever over the next year.
So you use the other parts too, the construction monitoring and the engineering too?
In the term of the contract, we use engineering services once, and we have not used construction monitoring services.
Got it.
But I think of them as an insurance policy in case something was to go awry and we had a large problem. Like for the engineering services, we had a project that for years had heating problems, and there was a lot of problems going back and forth with the developer and the engineer of record and the architect of record of having it repaired, and we utilized this service to hire our own engineer to do a report on what needed to be taken care of. It's that type of thing we would utilize these for.
Okay, great. Makes sense.
And we're doing the affirmative concurrence.
What's that?
So there's also, you've had an RFP for 5 years, right?
It exceeds 5 years, so you're going to have an affirmative concurrence with the
To continue this without doing a new RFP.
without doing a new solicitation process.
Is affirmative concurrence is a technical term that means what?
That we agree that we're going to continue, we really shouldn't be without a new RFP for 5 years, so we're going to continue for another year.
And then do a new RFP?
Yeah, I'm assuming we'll do a new RFP next year, right?
Just don't have enough staff, but we'll try to get it done next year.
Got it. Okay. Linda, I think we're good.
All right, I apologize.
No.
And now before the board is a resolution authorizing approval of contracts for firms with housing technical consultant services. All in favor of, assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. Now before the board for consideration is a reauthorization and increase of home program award to the Cigar Factory Apartments. Sean?
Hello again. Presented for your consideration is a resolution reauthorizing and increasing the maximum home program award to Broadway Fillmore Neighborhood Housing Services, Inc. for Cigar Factory Apartments, the new construction and adaptive reuse of a garage in the city of Buffalo that will produce 11 residential units and a commercial space. Originally authorized for a home award in May of 2018, the project was delayed due to substantial construction cost increases on the part of the project's original general contractor, RP Oak Hill out of Buffalo. In response, the project sponsor secured more competitive pricing from Lamparelli Construction Company, Inc., a GC with whom HCR has had considerable positive experience. In addition, to help close the remaining funding gap, the project sponsor has secured additional financing from non-HCR resources and is making an equity contribution and reducing their developer allowance. The additional $243,700 in home funds authorized by this resolution will close the remaining funding gap. At this time, the project sponsor is well positioned to close on construction financing within the next 45 days. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to.
Well, if we're recording, did you have a question
I
on
had a question about
Cigar?
what home front is, and
Okay. So then we'll wait. So why don't we do Lisa?
Or I can hold it. We can just vote. I don't need to ask a question.
Well, we can do Lisa while they try and call. We can do Lisa and the informational items while we're trying to get Hampton back, because there's only 2 items for them.
Frank Consulting.
Right.
It's Frankie, isn't it?
On July 24, 2013, HUD published a final rule in the Federal Register to amend the home program regulations to present new obligations related to oversight and compliance. HTFC is responsible for administration of the state's home program that includes an annual funding allocation that exceeds $20 million. Technical assistance and support services are required for HTFC to ensure ongoing compliance and adherence to federal regulations for the home program, to ensure timely and compliant commitment and expenditure of funds to meet a July 2019 HUD expenditure deadline. Failure to meet the deadline will result in forfeiture of federal funds. To that end, last month, HTFC entered into a single source contract with Frank Consulting for the provision of technical assistance support services in the design and implementation of the home program and its projects, including compliance with HUD and other requirements. Given the extensive knowledge gained by Frank with HUD and state and local governments across the country, Frank's close proximity to Albany for essential in-person meetings, together with the extensive experience gained by Frank during its previous engagements with HTFC, Frank has a unique advantage in providing these technical assistance and support services. The contract with Frank is before the board for approval for a 3-year term and an amount not to exceed $45,000.
Everybody loves this guy in this contract, so he seems to be very, very valuable for staff.
His name's Frank?
It's his last name.
It's Monty Frank, I believe.
First name. That makes it better for you. Monty Frank. But yes, he's a really, really valuable federal consultant.
Okay.
All right. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No, mine's not tracking.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. We'll skip the Pregon's theater space unless anyone. Pregon. Well, thank you.
You're
and the second and the shop, and I'll just read through the list of informational items while we're just working to get Hampton up. There are no, these are informational items and do not require board action, a review of officers, a review of the ethics report, review of the secret Type 2 projects, review of the secret concur summaries, review of the secret determinations for projects under the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, review of authorized contracts under the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, annual review of contract with FedCap Rehabilitation Services for printing and mailing services, review of annual contract with the Community Preservation Corporation as administrator for the Small Project Affordable Rental Construction Program, and review of contract with CVR Associates for Section 8 inspection services. Are there questions or comments about any of those?
None of the Hampton folks can hear us, right? Can they hear us?
No, not yet.
I was gonna ask that the record reflect how appreciative we are of all the work Heather Spitsberg does, because we saw recently that some
Dallas?
town or state or
Texas.
Right.
got a finding for not doing their environmental compliance and had millions of dollars. They need to done and had millions of dollars. So we appreciate all that Heather does.
All right, do you want to proceed without the formal presentations on the remaining items, or wait to see? Are they going to be able to call
How
them?
many are there?
To connect.
There are two.
Go ahead and we can look at
It's
them.
Cigar Factory,
That's fine.
the theater space,
Pregones.
Pregones, and Dunkirk. It's an increase in shop funds.
Okay.
This is one we already approved in the past.
No, it just got added to the agenda.
Oh, this is the one you
yesterday.
said yes.
Oh no, but Dunkirk was already approved, right? Because it's an increase in shop funds, so that would
2017. Yeah.
right. So the underlying project was previously approved.
Oh yeah, 12 buildings to be rehabilitated, only one could be restored. So, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where they had to demo the properties, which obviously created a $600,000 gap, and I think Sean was trying to work with them to increase the LIHTC award, but the investor came back with lower pricing, so instead of doing LIHTC, he thinks it's better to just do subsidy
Okay.
to address the gap.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then assuming the first and second previously entered before the board, now before the board is a resolution authorizing an increase of shop funds for the Dunkirk renovation and ownership program. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted.
Is that it? Wait, did we do cigar?
We have to do cigar and pregones. So,
Well, we got the presentation on cigar.
Yeah.
You want to ask your home
No,
front?
I don't. I retract my question.
okay.
Let the record
Trying to look better.
Yeah.
Then now before the board is resolution authorizing an award of reauthorization and increase of home program to cigar factories, assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution adopted. The last item before the board is resolution authorizing documentation and classification of the Pregones theater space project. Is there any questions about that?
This is a Puerto Rican acting troupe.
And I thought we had done that.
Is this the secret? This is just the secret resolution? Okay. So we're just approving the neg deck here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Then now before the board is a resolution authorizing the documentation and classification of the Pregones theater space project. I'm going to butcher it every time. Assuming the first and second previously entered for the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the resolution is adopted. All right, everybody. That's a wrap.
That might be our longest meeting.
This
we've had
sounds.
in
This is like one of our
2023.
meetings.
Well, that was quite a meeting.
You know, I was looking through the ESD board stuff.
You're reading other people's minutes for fun.
Yeah, because of you. Because
For Holly.
Ruth Ann had questions. Your questions on the
TEP.
TEP. I'm like, what the heck? And so I'm going through, and it turns because the TEP is payable to ESD.
Right.
And so I was going through your board where I found all the materials, and your board stuff is enormous. I mean, the
The materials we
Yeah.
provide, I know.
oh my,
Intense.
I
Really?
thought
More than we do?
much more.
Oh, yeah.
Much more. I'm assuming you don't do printing, right? It's just on the
We
web.
used to. We just started doing all the. Everybody gets it's like this now, but that's since I've been there.
As long as you recorded that part, we're good.
So the
We used to
memo,
have
And then
books
we'll
like this
just-
thick
Yeah,
with the board members.
I can imagine.
Ours is pretty
Awesome.
big.
Thank you.
Probably
But
maybe
the
half.
ones that I was
Sorry,
looking
uh-huh.
at, the mail, that's
Don't
from
worry
Ken,
about
I
it.
guess.
Don't worry
Ken
about
must have
it.
been the CEO. So all the memos are from Ken to the board. So the ones for
It's
like
intense.
Westview and they
On
go
that
into.
tough thing, I
Oh,
wanted.
really?
I think I forgot to send
Um,
this.
But that's the only word that we have
Yeah.
didn't
Do
have.
you guys know?
Yeah, they ask you a related, not or
EST
slightly
is owed monthly
unrelated
tax
question.
equivalency payments